So, picture this. It's 2013. I'm a college sophomore, fully committed to my role as a theater arts major, specifically theatrical makeup. And let me tell you, this class was my jam. While most students are stressing over calculus or biology, I was spending my Friday mornings smearing fake blood on my face and learning how to make realistic gashes that'd make your grandma faint. It just so happened that the week before Halloween was dedicated to the holy grail of stage gore, trauma makeup, bruises, burns, impalements. Oh my instructor handed us prosthetics and said, "Go nuts." And boy, did I go nuts. Some students did a black eye, a scraped knee, maybe a tiny forehead cut like they tripped over a Lego. Amateurs. Me? I decided to channel my inner zombie apocalypse survivor who had been run over by a shopping cart, clawed by a raccoon, and tossed down an escalator. I had blood dripping from every corner of my face, a jagged glass shard sticking out of my cheek. One eye blacked out. I looked like I'd fought a blender and lost, but stylishly, and I loved it. I strutted out of that class like it was the red carpet at HorrorCon. Now here's where things start spiraling. I leave campus still looking like a post-apocalyptic meatball, and not one person stops me. That is, until a campus security officer pulls me over in the parking lot. "Ma'am, are you? Holy crap, are you okay?" He goes pale. I quickly explain it's makeup. Offer him a napkin to prove it's fake blood. He laughs, but nervously. I think I traumatized a grown man in uniform. I finally get home, where my dad, legend that he is, greets me with, "Oh nice, keep that on. The kids'll love it." My niece and nephews were due over in half an hour. And chilling on the couch, channel surfing with one eye, because the other has a prosthetic eyelid glued shut. I hear a knock, assuming it's the kids. I do what any self-respecting theater major hopped up on Halloween spirit would do. I lurch to the door like Frankenstein's undead cousin, dragging my leg, moaning, "Brains." I fling the door open dramatically, fully expecting a burst of giggles. Only, it's not the kids. Nope. Standing on my doorstep are two impeccably dressed Jehovah's Witnesses, with clipboards, pamphlets, and the facial expressions of people who just realized they knocked on the gates of Hades. They freeze. I groan. One drops their pamphlet. Then, Scooby-Doo style, they turn tail and sprint off my porch like Olympic athletes. I was still trying to process what just happened when my brother pulls up in his minivan. The kids pile out and my dad comes outside, already howling with laughter. Apparently, he had seen the whole thing from the window. To this day, he swears those two witnesses have never returned to our street. He even claims they were spotted on the corner, looking at our house and referring to it as the lair of Beelzebub. Let's take a detour here, folks, and really dig into the beauty of accidental horror comedy. Over the years, I've accidentally traumatized a surprising number of people with my makeup skills. Like that time I went to the grocery store mid-practice wearing a throat/prosthetic and got tackled by an off-duty EMT. Or the moment I forgot I had a broken leg latex effect and tried to return a book at the library, only for the librarian to gasp and yell, "We need a splint, stat." I even dated a guy once who said he couldn't handle my zombie face after a mid-semester photo shoot. I dumped him. I mean, if you can't handle me at my undead, you don't deserve me at my curtain call. Also, side note, why do horror fans make the best friends? You've never known loyalty until someone says, "Dude, you've got an axe in your skull." And instead of panicking, they say, "It's a little crooked. Let me fix it." Back to the story, because oh yes, it didn't end there. About a month after the Halloween debacle, my dad noticed a new set of door knockers. Different church, different wardrobe. He thought about warning them. He really did. But he decided to let fate play its role. This time, I wasn't in makeup, but they knocked, I opened the door, and the first words out of their mouths were, "Oh, we've heard about you." Then they left. No pamphlet, no pitch, just fear. What's the lesson here? Always check who's at the door before pretending to be a zombie. Never underestimate the power of stage blood. And maybe, just maybe, Halloween spirit is the ultimate solicitor repellent. Thanks for tuning in to this spooky little slice of comedy gold. If you like the story, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and let me know in the comments what's the weirdest thing you've answered the door wearing. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it funny, and for the love of pumpkins, don't use real blood. Peace out. You ever have one of those days where you think you're just going in for a normal doctor's visit and suddenly you're one uncomfortable sneeze away from fainting in front of 6 strangers? Yeah, buckle in, because this story's got everything: humiliation, anatomy lessons, and a urologist who is just a little too calm. Let me take you back to the most awkward Tuesday of my entire life. So I had just turned 20. I was young, invincible, and thought a yearly physical was just a formality where the doctor says, "You're fine, keep eating pizza." I hadn't been to a doctor since high school, so I figured, hey, let's be responsible. I walk into this tiny medical office that smells like bleach and old magazines. The nurse gives me a clipboard thicker than a Tolstoy novel. Why does a urine test require so many questions? Am I training to be a spy or just trying not to pee my pants? Anyway, I get called back. They do all the usual stuff: weight, height, blood pressure, which spiked the moment they brought out that cold stethoscope. Then the doc comes in, nice guy, very professional, until he pulls out the latex gloves and says, "All right, time for the turn and cough." Sir, I did not emotionally prepare for this. Then comes the urine test. Easy enough, right? Wrong. I get handed this tiny plastic cup. No instructions, no warning label. Just vibes. I go into the bathroom and instantly forget how to pee like a normal human. I'm suddenly overthinking everything. Am I supposed to pee midstream? Is there a fill line? Why is the cup the size of a thimble? I do my best. It's not my finest work. I walk out trying to look confident, like I didn't just sprinkle a Jackson Pollock masterpiece in that bathroom. I hand the cup to the nurse and head home feeling like I nailed it. That feeling lasted 5 hours. The nurse calls me that evening. Not the doctor, the nurse. Never a good sign. She says, "Hi, just calling about your urine test results." I say, "Cool, so I'm good?" She pauses. "No, actually, we found an elevated white blood cell count. The doctor recommends you see a urologist." Now I'm panicking. White blood cells? That sounds like either I'm fighting off a mutant infection or I've become the origin story of a very lame superhero. I ask, "Is it serious?" She says, "Probably not, but better to be sure." I Google everything. Big mistake. Every result ends in either cancer or imminent death. Thanks, WebMD. A week later, I find myself in the urologist's office. Everyone else in the waiting room is at least 40 years older than me. One guy's asleep with his mouth open. Another guy looks like he's writing his will on the back of a Wendy's receipt. They call my name, and I swear the receptionist smirks. I follow the nurse to a room that's colder than my ex's heart. Doctor walks in and immediately starts talking about scopes. I'm thinking, like a telescope or something? No big deal. Then he says, "We're going to insert a very thin camera through your urethra." Pause. Rewind. What now? I'm like, "You're putting what? Where?" Then he says, "We're doing it today." Today? My soul left my body. I wasn't mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually ready. They take me to another room. A nurse tells me to lie down and cover myself with a sheet. I comply, obviously, because I'm in shock and might cry. I think this can't get worse. Oh, it gets worse. 4 other people walk in. Students, student nurses. Apparently, I'm about to become part of someone's final exam. An older nurse walks over and says, "I need to clean the area." I nod. She pulls out a bottle of some iodine stuff and starts scrubbing like she's prepping Thanksgiving dinner. And then, oh no, it happens. Look, I didn't mean to. It was involuntary. It was science. You can't combine anxiety, stimulation, and public humiliation and not expect a reaction. Let's just say I experienced an unfortunate inflation. I tried thinking about baseball, taxes, the Great Depression. Nothing worked. The nurse just casually covers me with a towel and says, "Don't worry, happens all the time." I'm not sure if that helped or made it worse. They wheel over what looked like a prop from a sci-fi horror movie. This scope thing is not as tiny as he described. The procedure starts. And let me tell you something, there is no pain like urological invasion. It wasn't even the pain, it was the sensation. Like a reverse sneeze, but for your dignity. The doctor is narrating everything like David Attenborough. And here we see the inner bladder, a wondrous terrain. Sir, please don't narrate my organs. 5 minutes later, it's over. I'm shaky, sweating, and spiritually broken. The nurse pats me on the shoulder like I just survived war. I get dressed slowly. Like a man twice my age, I shuffle past the reception desk with dead eyes. I go home and take the longest shower of my life. I just stood there like I was in a sad movie montage. The next day, the results come in. Nothing is wrong. I was fine all along. Cool. So I just went through medieval torture because my pee had an off day. I never went back for a physical. Not once. That was 10 years ago. You know what? I'll take my chances. My body can send me a text when something's wrong. But here's the lesson. If a nurse ever calls you and says your test results are a little off, just fake your death and move to another state. Or at least ask if it involves tubes. Always ask about tubes. Thanks for listening to the worst day of my life. If you made it this far, you're either a medical professional, incredibly curious, or just enjoy watching someone else suffer through unspeakable awkwardness. Do me a favor. Smash that like button if you've ever had an awkward doctor visit. Or if you just learned what a urethra actually is. All right, let me paint the picture for you. I'm not what you'd call a regular at the local gentleman's establishments. Actually, up until this fateful night, my idea of a wild evening was 2-for-1 apps at Applebee's. But here I was, thrown into the deep end of neon lights, questionable stage names, and more glitter than a preschool art project. It all started because of traffic. That's right. I was trying to avoid rush hour on the I-40, and my GPS helpfully pointed out that I could kill an hour at Sugar Dreams. Now, Sugar Dreams isn't exactly what you'd call classy. The sign was half lit, and the S was flickering like it had seen things. The bouncer was built like a refrigerator and didn't say a word, just nodded, took my cover charge, and gave me a look that screamed, "You're not from around here, are you?" He was right. I was wearing a Star Wars t-shirt and Skechers. I looked like I took a wrong turn at Comic-Con. Inside, the club was basically the love child of a disco ball and a fog machine. There were 3 patrons, one asleep at the bar, one definitely day-drinking Fireball, and one suspiciously trying to sell NFTs to a dancer. I sat at a corner table and tried to blend in by drinking my $12 Bud Light like it was fine wine. Then she appeared. Cue heavenly music. Or maybe that was just the DJ playing a trap remix of Careless Whisper. Either way, she walked out like a goddess descended from a pole-shaped Olympus. She had red hair, a tattoo sleeve, and more confidence than I have socks. Let's call her Ember. Ember spots me immediately, probably because I was staring like a deer caught in LED headlights. She struts over, heels clicking like a countdown to my emotional unraveling. "Hey there, you look new," she says with a smile that could cause heart palpitations. "Yeah, I'm traffic," I reply. "Nailed it." She laughs and sits down next to me. We start talking. Like, actual talking. She's into horror movies, loves dogs, thinks NFTs are dumb. I'm immediately mentally planning our wedding and what we'd name our labradoodle. After 30 minutes of this bizarre therapy session wrapped in fishnets, she leans in and asks, "Wanna dance?" I nod, obviously. We head to a private booth, which is a generous word for a closet with a disco light. I sit down, trying not to breathe too loudly. She straddles me, starts the dance, and it's a lot. There's skin. There's hair flipping. There's a brief moment where I think I see the face of God. But I'm also deeply, painfully aware of one thing. I am not handling this well. You see, my brain was having a full-on identity crisis. One half was like, "This is the best day of our life." And the other was like, "We need to call our therapist now." And then, like flipping a switch, she says, "Okay, Break time. Break time? What is this? Summer camp? She hops off, gives me a quick peck on the cheek, which honestly sent me into another dimension, and disappears behind a curtain. I sat there, alone, with a $60 tab, a lap full of glitter, and a heart that felt like I'd just been ghosted by a hallucination. I wandered back to my corner seat, defeated, and ordered another Bud Light to drown my fake heartbreak. She never came back. Instead, a dancer named Chardonnay tried to chat me up, but I was emotionally unavailable. I had just been through something. I wasn't ready. Eventually, I paid my tab, tipped more than I should have, and walked out into the night like a character in a movie who's just realized he's not cut out for this life. My car still had glitter on the seat weeks later. I told my friends I'd been through some stuff. They assumed I meant a breakup. I didn't correct them. And that, my friends, is the tale of how traffic led me to fall in love for 7 minutes with a woman named Ember, who probably forgot me the moment she counted my tip. 10 out of 10 would emotionally spiral again, but next time, I'm wearing black. Glitter's a pain to vacuum. When I was 13 years old, my local church was holding a fundraising event, and it involved a really big pre-owned book sale. To promote the massive amount of children's books they were desperately trying to get rid of, someone rented a cheap, well-worn Clifford mascot costume. The fabric in the joints had rubbed away, and the ears on the headpiece looked like they were rotting off. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request," which convinced the adults he was too sick to play the role of Clifford. The priests went to each volunteer, begging them to do it, and were only met with very firm no's. Then one of them came to me, a tiny 8th grade girl who was just trying to meet the minimum 10 hours of volunteering needed for my Catholic school to pass me for the year. Not only did the priest offer to sign my volunteer sheet and fully fill it out, thus completing my requirements when I had done maybe 2 hours of volunteering total, but he also handed me a $20 and said, "Jesus suffered for you, so you can tough this out for some little kids." The worst pain I ever experienced in my life was when I was 21 and my appendix ruptured, which also caused some cysts on my ovaries to burst as well. I passed out several times from the pain on the way to the hospital, and when I came to after the emergency surgery, one of the nurses smiled at me and said, "Well, honey, you just experienced a pain worse than natural childbirth." When I tell you I would rather have my rotten appendix violently shoved back in my body and have it removed all over again than ever wear that Clifford suit again, I mean it. The stench inside the mascot head made me feel like I was in that scene of Spirited Away, when the gross mud spirit slops his way through the bathhouse and the smell was so bad that it spoiled food. My eyes burned, the saliva in my mouth dried up, and the heat from my own breath made it stick to my pores. Inside that suit, I realized that God was either dead or a cruel creator, because no loving God would allow something as foul as that Clifford suit to exist. I ended up sitting for most of the hour-long commitment because I easily became dizzy while standing. I was told to act like a Disney mascot, waving happily and moving with excitement to welcome the little kids over to the books. All I did was sit in a small chair, staring straight ahead with my paw-gloved hands set on my knees, desperately grasping to hold on to whatever bits of reality I could. I wish I could say I blacked out for most of it. I really wish I did. But no, I remember almost every minute I spent in that sticky, red-colored fursuit. The worst part about it all is that every child that came by was terrified of Clifford the decaying corpse. One mother really tried to entice her toddler to get a picture with me, but the kid screamed like he was being flayed alive when he was pushed towards me. I don't blame him. I don't blame any of the kids for being scared. It was a scary costume. I was scared while wearing it. I'm wondering if the kids sensed my fear. I had nightmares about being trapped in that suit, or the suit coming to life and hunting me down for at least a month afterwards. The only small positive to come from it was that the older high school volunteer kids had a weird kind of respect for me from then on. One of them said I reminded him of his uncle who served in Vietnam. I understand why.